One question on a lot of people's minds is, of course, we now have over 20 million people that are unemployed. Will there be any more rounds of stimulus? Well, if you ask Donald Trump, he says maybe, or maybe just more than maybe. In fact, during a recent interview with a Scripps correspondent, he says, quote, "We will be doing another stimulus package." And he offered very few details, except to say that it will be very good. It'll be very generous. Very good, very generous. We'll be doing another stimulus package. Now, when asked about more details about maybe how much that payment's going to be, because again, very generous makes it sound like, oh, we're going to do the $2,000 a month Democrats, progressive Democrats have been pushing for, right? I mean, that would be very, generous, maybe turning it into a UBI system that's monthly until the coronavirus pandemic is over and we can safely open up. Will it be very generous like that? Or will it be very generous in Republican terms of one round of $1,200? I don't know. Nobody knows. But don't worry, he says, you'll find out about it. You'll find out. Well, I'm much more comforted now. I feel so much better, guys. Thank you. Now, what's funny about this is that he's saying all this stuff, and yet no one else seems to know about this upcoming Trump stimulus, the second round. In fact, a White House official told NBC News that there were no decisions that have been made yet, but a second stimulus payment is part of something the economic team is studying. Well, that's a big difference between it'll be very good, it'll be very generous, it's coming very soon, and you're going to find out over the next couple of weeks. It's a big difference between that and, well, we're studying this, right? Which is the more consistent Republican position that Mitch McConnell has taken, where he's saying like, hey, we're not going to do anything until we've studied how the stimulus has been spent already. And we find out actually that there's still a large amount of stimulus money that hasn't been spent yet. And so that's also interesting. Now, the other part of that, you guys know that most of the stimulus went to corporations, right? Went to corporate bailouts. Those same companies, by the way, are laying people off still. AT&T, for example, they're going forward with a plan to lay off thousands of workers in some of their higher tier jobs. A lot of these corporations are doing restructuring. And so the economy, I mean, if you're doing restructuring and laying people off, that's not a temporary layoff. That's people losing their jobs. Those are not going to be people that are going to be able to be called back to work when the states reopen or when more states reopen or when they start to go into the later phases of reopening as well, because you still have some restaurants that are, reduced occupancy. And so not as many people can come in, so you don't have as many orders, or maybe not as many people are comfortable with going in and frequenting those restaurants, which means that they're not going to need as many workers for people to come in. Basically not need as many workers because not as many people are coming in to, frequent the restaurant. And so those are jobs that are not coming back immediately. And so that means that there's going to be a need for more stimulus and more, unemployment benefits, possibly going past July 31st. And that really is the cutoff right now. So now, that said, right, we now have the HEROES Act that's on the table that was passed by House Democrats, right? And it's been there since May. Been there for a little while. And it is another round of $1,200 checks, just one. And it also expands the number of people who are eligible to receive those checks by including college students and older teenagers. And so, look, one problem with that $1,200 check is that it didn't reach a lot of the people that actually needed it. And so, I mean, there's a lot of people that also haven't received that government check as well. And so there's that. Now, the payments would be capped at $6,000 per household, but it does increase some of the benefits. So now, still not quite enough. People need some sort of paycheck guarantee. That's a federal benefit, as well as a UBI and a stimulus, so that when this is over, we can start spending money and re-energize the economy with all of that consumer spending. I don't think we're going to do that, which means we're going to be in this for quite some time. In fact, employers are still shedding jobs at quite a heavy rate. Again, we have 20 million people that are unemployed, despite the reopening, as I've explained a couple of the reasons. And not only that, but look, that's not even the official unemployment rate. You have to look at the U6 unemployment, right? I think it's U6, which is the real unemployment, which is beyond 20 million people. Not only that, but as a couple of people of you mentioned, that, we need rent freezes, mortgage freezes, and things like that to make sure that people can be able to afford their, afford things, afford food, afford basic supplies, because this is going to be hard for quite some time. All right. So now, that said, there's a report, this is according to Gregory Dacko, chief U.S. economist at Oxford, saying that the jobs reports are telling us that the scars from the job losses in the recession will be a longer lasting event than we expected. And he also points to, of course, the fact that there are jobs that are continuing to be shed, even in places that are reopening. And of course, there are people that are not, even though that's opened up, there are people that are just not ready to go back into the economy. You also have Jerome Powell echoing the same thing, saying that recently some indicators have pointed to a stabilization and in some areas a modest rebound. Yet, until the public is confident that the disease is contained, a full recovery is unlikely. So those are all the facts, right? And those are good reasons for us to have a second stimulus. So now we go to Donald Trump's reason. What's Donald Trump's reason? Because we know Donald Trump doesn't read, right? He doesn't read. He doesn't pay attention to facts, statistics, and figures or anything like that. And generally, he's not worried about regular people, right? Actual living human beings, right? So now, of course, his main worry is his reelection. He thinks now that maybe if we go for another stimulus, if I give more people money, my polling will shoot up. My handling of the coronavirus pandemic and the economy will go up. More people will begin to approve of the job that I'm doing, and that will help me win the election. As usual, you always have to look at how something that Donald Trump talks about that actually is a good idea, how that benefits him. Again, I hope that he's successful in convincing Mitch McConnell. I don't think Mitch McConnell is going to be convinced because the Republicans in Congress, they already got their bailout, right? They already got their, corporate handouts, trillions in dollars, worth of interest-free loans, basically grants, loans that will turn into grants for some businesses. And so you have the banks that are being leveraged as well. You have these, massive handouts from the Federal Reserve to the banks to make sure that they have liquidity. And so they're fine. Even the stock market has had some ups and downs, but mainly some ups. And so even the stock market's doing better. I think a couple of weeks ago, it even had one of the biggest rallies since like 2008. And so that's what the Republicans are worried about. And Donald Trump, of course, is worried about himself. And so, yeah, he's going to lie. And that's what this is, because there's certainly no plan to have a stimulus, another stimulus check being sent to you. So it's all bullshit. And that's what you should expect. Bullshit. Nothing. And more socialism for the rich, if we do get anything. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.